Hello, I'm Mark Stuart, President and CEO of the San Diego Foundation, and I'm delighted to welcome you to our Early Childhood Initiative Convening, Workforce, Childcare, and Change. At the San Diego Foundation, our mission is to inspire enduring philanthropy and enable community solutions to improve the quality of life in our region. Last year, we launched a bold new strategic plan with a vision for just, equitable, and resilient communities. One of the ways that we can realize that vision is by increasing access to affordable, high-quality childcare and early education. By doing so, we will strengthen families and support a competitive regional workforce. For many years, the San Diego Foundation Early Childhood Initiative has been deeply engaged in work that supports our region's families, especially those with children under the age of 5. We know that early childhood care and education is essential for the health, development, and future success of San Diego's children and our regional economy. Children who are provided with early educational opportunities do much better in school and are more likely to attend college and be prepared for careers. Unfortunately, almost 40% of San Diego's children between the ages of 3 and 5 are not enrolled in preschool or kindergarten. Thousands of local children are on wait lists for subsidized care. We must do better so that working parents can leave their children with trusted professionals and help keep our local economy growing. Today's event is dedicated to understanding the role of childcare in supporting our local workforce. During our program, you'll hear about the San Diego Foundation's research into the local need for childcare. And thanks to our panel of experts, you'll also learn about employers' creative solutions to provide childcare in an increasingly competitive job market. I hope you find this event informative and helpful in understanding our region's childcare needs. Now, I'd like to introduce a local leader who is a working parent, a champion for all San Diegans, and a valued partner to the San Diego Foundation. Please welcome San Diego County Board of Supervisors Chair Nathan Fletcher.
Hey everyone, Chair of the San Diego County Board of Supervisors, Nathan Fletcher here. It's a great honor to join you all virtually. I believe an investment in childcare is an investment not only in our children, but our families, an investment in our regional economy. As a working parent, I know firsthand the importance of having access to quality, affordable childcare. Unmet childcare needs are a tremendous burden on our region's working families. They lead to lost jobs and a struggle to just maintain a decent standard of living. Parents should never have to quit their jobs or reduce their hours because they can't find access to quality, affordable childcare. And when we strengthen the access to this vital service, we take a huge step forward in fulfilling the unmet needs of our region. Simply put, a quality, affordable childcare has got to be funded as an essential component of what we do for our workforce. We know that during the COVID-19 pandemic, so many working families were left struggling in a situation that got even harder. According to a survey by Northeastern University from May 2020 to June 2020, 13% of U.S. families had to quit their job or reduce their hours because of a lack of childcare. We also know childcare providers were hit hard by the COVID pandemic. It left many of them struggling to remain open. That's why I supported the use of CARES Act funding of $25 million to support childcare providers and appreciate the facilitation and tremendous work of the San Diego Foundation. Early childhood care and education are essential to empowering the future of our children and the long-term success of our regional economy. Thank you all for attending today's event to learn more about what we can do collectively to come together to meet the childcare needs of our local workforce.
Thanks for joining us today. My name's Katie Rast, and I'm the Director of Community Impact at the San Diego Foundation. We know that support for children and families is a critical part of building a resilient region. And I'm very lucky to be joined today by Eduardo Velasquez from the San Diego Regional EDC, who's going to help us shed some light on this important topic. So we know that a lack of access to childcare has a direct impact on working parents and on the workforce as well as the local economy. Today we're going to talk through some data that helps us really understand what the current local picture looks like. So at a glance, it might seem simple, right? We know that employers need to fill jobs and parents need to work. but parents are facing some pretty serious challenges that in some cases is actually causing them to have to disengage from the workforce. So the first thing that we need to explore is the cost. The cost of care it can be extremely expensive. And according to some recent data that was published by the University of San Diego, we now know that the current cost to provide a year's worth of care for one infant at a licensed child care facility locally is over $19,000. That's simply unattainable for many families. So furthermore, there's a mismatch between supply and demand. Thanks to some recent survey work conducted by USD, we understand that over 74,000 children ages 0 to 5 in our region don't have access to a licensed child care spot. That's nearly half of all kids that age who don't have a stay-at-home working parent. So if a parent can't find care for their children or can't afford care for their children, it seems reasonable to understand that they might be faced with a very hard decision, which ultimately might lead them to have to leave their job. Furthermore, it's not only supply and cost that is making this challenging for working parents. 68% of parents that were polled through a recent survey that the San Diego Foundation commissioned noted that they had a hard time finding not just care, but care that covered a full working day so that they could get to work. And even for parents who are working, 43% of them said that they had to shift their work schedule in order to care for their children. So this is leaving a lot of parents on the sidelines. And of course, it's worth mentioning that not only are working parents currently impacted, but the exposure to quality early childhood education that plays such an important role in these critical developmental years for kids ages 0 to 5 is unfortunately something that many of these kids are not going to be able to access. And of course, we know that that is something that leads children to have greater grade level readiness, educational success, and ultimately career success. So what we're seeing is not only an impact on the current workforce, but potentially one on the workforce of tomorrow as well. So I'd love to turn over to you, Eduardo, and learn a little bit more from your perspective, how you see this impacting the local workforce and employers.
Yeah, thanks, Katie. I mean, to start, the pandemic really impacted working parents and exacerbated the challenges that they were facing compared to before the pandemic. And this is especially true for women. Women in particular were less likely to return to the workforce, as many of them had to stay home to care for their kids while schools were closed or moved to a remote learning environment, and the childcare impacts that you described took place. On top of that, a lot of the lowest paying jobs in our region were occupied by women, unfortunately. And so what we see is that not only is the cost of childcare increasing, which draws women away from the workforce, but also the incentive to return is not quite there if the income that they would receive isn't going to cover the increasing cost of childcare. Furthermore, we see that reflected in the data in terms of the occupations that have been the slowest to recover in terms of the jobs lost. At the peak of the pandemic, so when job losses were at their greatest, 6 of the 10 occupations that saw the highest levels of unemployment were mostly occupied by women. So that reflects the fact that women were staying on the sidelines, not returning to work, in part because of the lack of childcare, but also in part because of the lower pay. 2 years on, the lowest income paying jobs in our region are still those that have yet to recover. In fact, right now, we still see that roughly 12% of those low-income jobs have yet to come back in San Diego. And in part, that's because of the lack of childcare, but also because of the disincentive to return to work. Meanwhile, there are actually several sectors in our economy that are unable to fill positions fast enough. Just looking back at the latest month of job postings in March of 2022, we actually saw that there were nearly 10,000 more unique new job postings in our region compared to a year prior. That's an 18% increase relative to 2021. We're also seeing that the median advertised salary has increased about 13% during that same time frame. What that means is that employers are looking to hire and hire at a faster clip than they were even just a year ago. And they're also willing to pay a premium to get those workers today. And so as employers face this hiring challenge, which is really unlike anything I have seen while in San Diego, they're having to get creative about how they can bring the workforce that they need in to fill the positions that they're looking to fill. One thing that I think is important to recognize is that during the pandemic, a lot of employers were forced to embrace a remote work environment, flexible work arrangements out of necessity as stay-at-home orders took effect. And what a lot of them have learned during that experience is that they can actually continue to operate and even thrive in this new environment. And that's critical because it offers a potential solution for employers looking to fill positions while we have this challenge around working parents unable to get back into the workforce, especially as the childcare shortages and rising cost introduces instability into their schedules and requires greater flexibility among working parents in order to get back to work. So this is an opportunity for employers to really continue to embrace the flexible work environment. It's a low-cost option for them to take on. And some of the, I think, most progressive and forward-thinking employers are doing just that, recognizing that they can continue to grow and thrive with a flexible work environment for their workers. In fact, we've been surveying employers throughout 2021 to understand how they're adapting to the impacts of the pandemic. And what we found is that the majority of those employers that we've surveyed have actually not only embraced this paradigm, this new flexible remote work environment, but they're actually seeing positive results. An overwhelming majority of them have said that they've seen either no impact or a positive impact on productivity in operations. So when employers are looking to fill positions and handle this worker shortage that we're currently facing, there's a real opportunity to promote flexibility and get working parents that are on the sidelines back to work, particularly women who would benefit from that additional flexibility, as opposed to trying to continue to attract talent from outside of the region, especially as we continue to face rising costs of living in San Diego compared to other metro areas.
Excellent. Wow, Eduardo. That's some pretty staggering information. You know, it sounds like, based on everything you've outlined, there is a real opportunity for employers to step in and make an important change around this issue. So, and it sounds like it would be to their benefit as well. If employers are able to implement solutions that make it easier for working parents to engage in the workforce and to come to work for them, it sounds like they would also be positioning themselves in a very competitive way when it comes to hiring and probably even retention. I know that in some of the polling that we recently conducted, we heard back from working parents that over 80% of them would very much prefer to work for an employer who offers some form of flexibility. One other thing I'll mention is that flexibility can mean a lot of different things. We've heard from parents that sometimes all that they're looking for is the ability to go and pick their kids up from daycare or school at the end of the day, knowing that they'll be able to flex their schedule and work an extra hour later that evening. So, as you mentioned, in many cases, it's very low cost to implement for some employers, not all, but certainly for some. And it has, through our surveying of working parents, continuously polled as one of the highest needs and the things that they are looking for the most.
Yeah, Katie, and the only thing I would reiterate is that I think the employers that recognize flexibility is an asset that their workers want are the ones that are going to be at a competitive advantage in terms of filling the positions that they're struggling to fill today.
That's a really great point. Thank you. I think that's a perfect takeaway for any employer who might be watching today who's interested in where to get started in thinking about not only how they can support working parents within their team, but also how they can, as you said, keep that competitive advantage when it comes to hiring and retention. Eduardo, thank you so much for being here with us today. I really appreciate your insight on this important topic. With that, we're going to go ahead and turn it over to Cheryl Oldham with the U.S. Chamber of Commerce Foundation.
Thank you for that introduction, and thank you so much for the opportunity to speak here today. As Katie said, my name is Cheryl Oldham, and I lead the Center for Education and Workforce at the U.S. Chamber of Commerce Foundation. I just want to start by saying it's so wonderful to see the attention placed on this critical issue, and I applaud the San Diego Foundation for this event and the focus on public-private solutions to America's childcare crisis. The Chamber of Commerce and the Chamber Foundation believe that the business community plays a vital role in addressing a lack of affordable, quality childcare in this country. But like so many issues, the solutions are more likely to be found locally. And that's why what you all are doing here today is so important. At the Chamber Foundation, we began our engagement in this issue almost 6 years ago by talking about childcare as a two-generation issue. And what I mean by that is that gaps in childcare affect not only the education children receive, but also the ability of parents to go to work. Childcare as a work support has grown in prominence and gained the attention of the business community and policymakers throughout the pandemic. And a big part of our work has been leading in this conversation, elevating these issues in our national discourse and highlighting the impact that childcare has on the American workforce. The Chamber Foundation and our partners have quantified the loss to local economies when childcare breaks down. And it's clear that this is an urgent necessity for Americans across socioeconomic backgrounds and businesses of all sizes. Every industry and region is feeling the ramifications of today's childcare crisis. And parents across the country struggle to find access to quality, affordable, and flexible care for their children. Our research shows that gaps in childcare limit the ability of businesses to recruit and retain qualified workers. These gaps also keep parents, especially women, from joining or rejoining the workforce. In our 2021 Untapped Potential series, a collection of reports analyzing how childcare disruptions hold local economies back in 5 states, we found that these states lose an average of $2.7 billion annually due to gaps in care. This figure includes an average of $528 million in lost tax revenue and $2 billion in loss from employee turnover and absences. In addition, between 28 and 40% of parents in our research said they or someone in their household did not take a job or changed jobs due to issues with finding suitable care. The data makes it clear. Childcare is a workforce issue. And as mentioned previously, the affected parents in these situations are disproportionately women. Women are quitting their jobs at higher rates than men, and the disparity remains higher in those communities where childcare disruptions are more pervasive. This all just compounds the existing gender disparities in the American workplace. Last January, in the first jobs report of the year, 1 million men entered the labor force, compared to just 39,000 women. At the same time, it's easy to understand why parents sometimes choose to stay home to take care of their kids, even when they'd really like to go back to work. Childcare remains very, very expensive, especially in this region. Some recent research by the California Policy Institute found that the average annual cost of unsubsidized childcare in California is on par with the annual tuition of UC San Diego. And 90% of California families surveyed said they cannot afford the current childcare options. Even when they can, childcare centers are understaffed and childcare workers are stretched to their limits. In January, there were hundreds of openings for childcare positions in San Diego County, but those who could work faced stressful and strenuous working conditions in the face of this global pandemic. Luckily, events like this one allow us to make progress in balancing the childcare equation that families and businesses confront. You all know best what works for San Diego and how to support working parents in this community. Understanding the needs of San Diego's workforce will take thoughtful contributions from each group represented here. Addressing the needs of employees can take many forms. No one solution fits everyone, but good solutions should build on what you know about your employees and your community. From our experience, there are several tangible steps we recommend to employers that they can take to make sure their workforce has access to childcare. One of the easiest, low cost, but important steps for every employer to start is to simply survey your employees. Ask them what they need. That doesn't mean you as an employer will be able to address every challenge, but often flexibility is the biggest variable in a parent's ability to find suitable care. Business owners can't always directly change how accessible childcare is, but they may be able to work with their employees to adjust work schedules. Understanding the needs of your own workforce is crucial. It's important to recognize that no two families are the same when it comes to taking care of their children, and no two businesses will have employees with the exact same needs. And while employers may think they know their workforce well, there is no substitute for conversations around employees' experiences. Creating opportunities for communication with and honest feedback from employees to figure out what they're looking for is really one of the most effective first steps in addressing childcare gaps in your workforce. Flexible hours and more structured shift scheduling are great tangible tactics to ensure that parents can address their children's needs while remaining active members of the workforce. This simple but powerful step can work across large corporations and small family-run operations. For employers with additional capacity, though, businesses can take bigger steps by offering vouchers or subsidized childcare options for their employees. One example that comes to mind is Corning's annual $2.5 million investment in childcare programs. You might recognize Corning as the name of kitchenware in your home, but they are also a company that is a great model for how corporations can fund childcare for their employees. After realizing that many members of their local community were leaving the workforce or turning down offers due to childcare concerns, Corning began to fund 5 local daycare centers for about 400 children in their upstate New York community. Corning's contribution allowed local families to pay on a sliding scale depending on their income. This access to care allowed employees to continue working at Corning instead of being forced to stay home. Since beginning its childcare efforts over 30 years ago, Corning has seen higher workforce retention and better recruitment outcomes. They are now working on opening a daycare center for infants through age 3 because they began to see that pregnant women or mothers of newborns were turning down job offers because of the lack of infant care available in the area. Investing in childcare has allowed Corning to stay involved in their community, and their leadership estimates that these investments in care are less costly than the threat of losing out on top talent. And right here in San Diego, local businesses are partnering to create innovative approaches to meeting the needs of working parents. Tutris, which was honored by the Chamber of Commerce last year with the Dream Big Minority-Owned Business Achievement Award, is a platform that enables more parents to participate in the workforce by connecting them to available care. In addition, Tutris partners with businesses to help facilitate and support companies looking to expand their childcare benefits. Tutris and another San Diego-based company, Dr. Bronner's, have teamed up to provide a tailored suite of childcare options for Dr. Bronner's employees, which has resulted in increased recruitment and retention of qualified workers. I also wanted to be sure to touch on incentives for employers. There are existing tax credits that can make the financial investment more affordable for businesses. An available but underutilized tax credit is the employer-provided childcare tax credit. Employers can claim 25% of expenses for creating in-house childcare or contracting out with an existing provider, and can claim a 10% credit for costs associated with contracting with a third-party referral service. Even if businesses don't have the means to make an investment on this scale, there are other steps they can take. I want to reiterate, as mentioned earlier, start with a survey. Understanding your working parents, maybe flexibility is all they need. Or maybe they need help in accessing providers in their community. Businesses can either connect directly with childcare providers or act as a liaison between local providers and their employees, or they can hire a third party to facilitate that communication. Also, business groups, nonprofits, community organizations like the San Diego Foundation can help by sharing resources and information on things like funding opportunities and resources for childcare. As their larger scale really enables them to have a reach that individuals may not have on their own. Finally, it's important to remember that childcare providers are themselves members of the business community. Facilitating access to childcare also creates dignified work for community members. It allows childcare businesses, which have been struggling throughout the pandemic, the opportunity to improve working conditions and wages for their employees. Elevating a sector hit hard by the pandemic will boost that industry, but also help support San Diego's economic viability. I want to emphasize again how exciting it is to see a group convene here today to make meaningful change in one of America's most vibrant cities. The people convened here have the power to work together and shape the future of San Diego's families. At the U.S. Chamber of Commerce Foundation, we've seen how powerful the business community can be at mobilizing change, making it clear that childcare is important to San Diego's businesses will help make childcare solutions a priority for both policymakers and community leaders. In my time at the Chamber Foundation, I've seen the best solutions come from a variety of stakeholders working together. I strongly believe that the business community has a leadership role to play here. A proactive and collaborative solution to fixing the childcare crisis in San Diego will pay returns for the economy, the region's businesses, parents' quality of life, and their children's educational future. Thank you so much for allowing me to be here with you today.
Today, we're lucky enough to be joined by Nancy Gannon Hornberger, the President and CEO of Say San Diego, Jennifer Gallagher, the Senior Vice President and Market Executive for Middle Market with Bank of America, and Kim McDougall, the Executive Director of the YMCA Child Care Resource Service. Thank you, ladies. It's great to have you here. Jennifer, let's go ahead and jump over to you if you don't mind. We know that we're thinking about the range of options that an employer might be able to offer in terms of benefits that are useful to working parents in particular. And one of the things that I've really come to understand as I've been researching this is that there really is a spectrum of things to choose from for any employer based on their needs, their capacity. So I'd love to just jump over to you and hear a little bit more about the type of benefits that Bank of America offers.
Yeah, sure. So we have incredible benefits we offer new parents. One of the benefits that I actually took advantage of recently was we give 16 weeks of paid time leave, and then we give up to 10 weeks for additional leave if you need it, unpaid, for a total of 26 weeks for paternity, maternity, and adoption leave. And you can take that leave over a span of 12 months, so you don't have to take it all right away when the baby arrives. And then another benefit that's really, really helpful is we have a generous reimbursement program, and that's for anything related to expenses for surrogacy, for adoption, and for fertility. And then lastly, backup care for childcare. We have a partnership with Bright Horizons, and so that's available for employees, and that also includes benefits for adult children with disabilities and elderly parents.
Wow,
yeah.
those are some extraordinary options. You know, Jennifer, you touched on this, but I want to say congratulations, because I know that you're a new mom, and your little one is absolutely adorable. And I think it's so wonderful that you not only bring the employer perspective to this conversation, but you yourself have your own insight as a working parent. Were there any benefits provided by Bank of America that were especially useful to you?
Yes, absolutely. I became very familiar with the benefits that the bank offered because I just had a baby 6 months ago, a little boy, Russell. And there is this one benefit. We have a partnership with a company called Maven. It's an online portal. And what it does is it offers accessibility to a different array of providers and doctors. So that includes pediatricians, nutritionists, sleep coaches, wellness coaches. So I personally used the sleep coach, and you have access to unlimited video appointments with these providers. So it's a very, very beneficial program for new parents.
Wow, that sounds like a lifesaver. That is really, really, really amazing. Thanks so much, Jennifer. You know, that's a really great segue, actually, to move over to you, Nancy, and ask a little bit more about some of the services that SAY San Diego offers in the region. You bring this really important perspective, both as an employer and as somebody who has deep knowledge of the health and human services and the needs of our community. Would you mind just starting us off by telling us a little bit about SAY and the services you offer?
Sure, absolutely. My pleasure. We don't have sleep coaches, but I think maybe we want those. So SAY San Diego has a 50-year track record of supporting children and families locally. We're locally situated as a nonprofit. And you know, our belief system really is that growing up and raising children is very complicated under the best of circumstances. But if you have hardships and vulnerabilities, it's that much more difficult. And we want to be the resource for families that need that extra help. So we look at all of the vulnerabilities in the region, and one thing we kept hearing about, you know, this acute need for childcare. So in addition to our comprehensive array of programs that serve entire families and the full age span, we really decided that we wanted to take a bold move and not just advocate for employers to do more in childcare, but to set an example and open a workplace childcare center, help other employers to do the same, and you know, as they say, walk the walk.
Right, that's wonderful. So I understand that you both are offering a service to other employers who might be interested in near-site or on-site childcare, as well as offering those services to your own employees. So SAY employs over 300 people, which I found incredibly interesting because it really shows the breadth of the work that you do. Would you mind just telling us if there is an employer out there who's wondering what types of services you offer, and if it's something that might work for them, what does it look like, and what would it look like as an employer to implement something like what you offer?
Yes, well, I think there's real urgency. We did a lot of deep listening with parents, and we heard over and over again that people were looking for quality, affordability, and convenience. And because we've been able to deliver that, we know that other employers can do the same. The thing is that for employers, you know, they have their core business, and it generally is not going to be childcare. We have decades of experience in the childcare space. We've been running before and after school programs. We've run preschools. So we have that core competency to bring. But we also understand now how to help employers to look at their site. Is it really feasible to put a center here? How can you finance it? How can you build and design it? And then we can also help with operations. So I think what we're hearing from employers is that they're looking at the array of benefits that can be more family friendly, more family centered. They realize that it will help with recruitment and retention of employees. And so we can help with all of that, and then also answer those tough questions about risks and liabilities and help take those off the table.
Great, that's great. Well, and you've tested this with your very own staff.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
I have to imagine that they've come back with positive responses to being able to have something as wonderful as this service built into their day-to-day workflow. So
I think that's it. It's the day-to-day
Yes.
workflow, you know, so you don't have to worry about another drop-off on your busy commute. You can spend your lunch break with your baby. We have lactation spaces, and then also for nursing moms, they can just take care, or nursing parents, they can take care of that right there. And all of those things are more valuable than anything in those early tender years of life. And what we hear most of all is people feel like, oh, this is an extension of my workplace family. You know, I have trust and confidence in you, and I know that you're going to take good care of my child. And that means a lot to us. I mean, I just am so proud that we've been able to offer this service to our employees, and we intend to expand it. We've been successful, and we're just getting started.
That's really powerful. Thank you, Nancy.
Sure.
It's really great to hear about local innovative solutions, and ones being brought about by some of our local nonprofits nonetheless. So that's a perfect opportunity to turn over to you, Kim, because the YMCA is also rolling out a really innovative service that can support the benefits that an employer offers. First, would you mind just telling us a little bit about your work and the services YMCA offers locally, and then let's transition over to talking about this new service that you're offering.
Yeah, absolutely. So for 40 years, we have received public funding to support families in finding and accessing childcare. And so that connects us to the 5,000 licensed and license-exempt childcare providers throughout the county, which consist of small family childcare homes, before and after school programs, centers, formal kind of preschool settings. And because of that connection that we have, we're able to really offer families the full range of childcare options that may be able to meet their needs. And we're able to utilize the existing childcare infrastructure to really find that best fit for families and be able to create a customized childcare plan for them. So as an organization, we are incredibly passionate about helping families find the best fit for themselves, helping families access funding, because we know that childcare funding is just a great barrier to access, as well as expanding the supply of quality accessible childcare, because a lot of times, even if a family can maybe afford the cost, there isn't the supply to meet the demand. And so we're really focused on those two things, and then consistently advocating for moms and childcare providers, because we know that moms and childcare providers are the ones who have really borne the brunt of this drastically underfunded childcare system. And so the more that we can do to elevate how they've been impacted, we feel like we're working towards our mission in that way. So
Makes sense. That makes sense. Well, I mean, the YMCA is obviously well known as a parent resource, right? So it seems like a natural fit that you would be able to help employers connect their employees to benefits and resources. So the service that you are, the relatively new, if I understand correctly, service that you're beginning to roll out, if I were an employer who wanted to learn more or see if it fit within sort of the structure of the things I am offering, what would you want me to know?
yeah. Well, I would want you to know that when you come to us, we're leveraging 40 years of building systems and experience in this space. And that we are leveraging that experience and the connections we have with the childcare provider community to build customized plans for employers, so that employers can really develop that perfect approach for their workers, for their employee base, for the type of care and plan that they're looking for. And we do that by really listening and understanding. So we first work with the employer to understand what goal they're trying to achieve. What are their childcare needs that they believe they have in their organization, and what barriers have they heard from their employees that they're facing. We then work closely with their employees to survey their employees and analyze the survey data to understand what could the financial impact be were the employer to put together some kind of an employer-sponsored childcare program, and to really provide employers with that sense of how many infants and toddlers are in your community right now. How many folks are trying to manage care with multiple aged children, really kind of bringing to light the true story for the employee experience. And then we help them build a customized plan. And so that customized plan can be including our child care resource and referral widget into their HR benefits package. That is free, funded by the state of California. And that's something that then can be shared with employees when they go on maternity leave, at onboarding. So everybody kind of has that access to that free resource. We also provide enhanced referrals, so we will do the kind of the heavy lifting on behalf of the parents. We'll make the calls to the providers to find that right match in terms of hours and capacity and that kind of thing. And then we really help families navigate the childcare subsidy system. So the childcare subsidy system is very complicated, and in many instances, an employer is going to have employees that do meet eligibility requirements, so can access these different funding streams, but it's hard to know how. And so we help them navigate that, get them connected to the funding streams that meet their needs, and then we can create a customized childcare voucher program where the employer wants to actually contribute funding towards the cost of care for their employees. We manage and run that entire process for them. It's what we've been doing for 40 years for the state, and now we're able to do it for employers as well. So it's really creating that customized approach that really helps address the challenges we know employees are facing.
Right, that's amazing. So we know you said accessibility, and we know a huge part of that is affordability, right?
Yes.
Both the supply, but also we know that the cost is simply unattainable for many, and in some cases right up there with the cost of a college tuition, right? So being able to both help a new parent navigate the complexities of the system, but also I would have to imagine that as an employer, being able to know that you can help offset the cost of childcare for your employees, that is just a tremendous benefit to be able to offer that would really, I think, set an employer apart in that way. That's a great point. Just to turn it back over to the rest of the group, you know, anything related to any of what we've discussed here, does it strike anybody, bring a thought to mind? Anybody want to respond to anything that's
I'd like
that's been
to
said?
piggyback a little bit on what Kim was just saying about, you know, working with employers. So we have this very fortunate position. You mentioned sort of the two hats that I'm wearing. I'm an employer that's running workplace childcare and benefits for my employees, and we're also a provider of before and after school, preschool, and infant care. So we partner with the Y, and it allows us to serve families who come in for free or with deep discounts because of the vouchers that are provided through the WISE system, which are fortunately going to expand. So more people for whom care is inaccessible can access care. And it's great for us because in terms of our financial model, we offer flex fees that are keyed to income. So we have everything from free slots to kind of full fee slots. And that makes it a much more sustainable business model. So I think sometimes employers are worried about, oh, I can get this started, but is this really a sustainable business model to operate childcare? And working with the Y and really thinking about ways to mix up the fees, if you will, and serve a wider population is really helpful. I would also just say that I think during COVID, one of the things that's really gotten harder is that working families are even more hard-pressed. So we have a number of people with very low income who get free or highly subsidized childcare. It's not a big enough cohort, we still need more, but that's available to some families that are particularly low income. And then, as you said, we have childcare that costs more than private college tuition. And people are not really ready for that when they're young families and they have an infant or a 3-year-old. But there's nothing in the middle. It's like this big chasm. So, you know, we want to be the community that supports working families, that puts people back to work, that doesn't say to parents, well, you know, sorry, we have nothing for you, so one of you has to give up your job and your career growth to stay at home. Much as you love your baby, that's a big sacrifice. We really want to be that community that has a range of different options, and particularly these affordable options in the middle. And so a lot of us sitting here are really advocating for that. And employers can play a big role because they have the resources, even if they charge their employees to cover some of the costs, they have the resources to make that financially accessible childcare for their workforce and to bring people back to work at the same time.
Really great points.
Yeah, I would just add there is a real need for employers to implement these benefits. For example, from the start of the pandemic, our employees used 4.5 million days of backup childcare. So it's, you know.
The need is there.
Exactly.
Yes, absolutely. Really, really great points.
It's estimated in the San Diego region, it's about 250,000 children who are missing this opportunity for childcare. And I put it that way because, you know, our employees are very much aware that between infancy and age 5, there's very rapid brain development. And if kids are in an enriched environment, it sets them up for good social relationships. They learn all those transactional skills, how to make friends, how to share, all of that. But they're also getting all those pre-academic skills, you know, gross motor skills, colors, shapes, early numeracy, early language arts, and that childhood advantage, that early childhood advantage is lost for those 250,000 kids who can't access that kind of care. And too often it's electronics or the TV that is feeding them their early childhood education. So I think it's also kind of a bet on the future. Like if we really want a vibrant community and workforce, employers can invest now for that in the future.
Absolutely.
Very well said.
And I think that's directly tied to the parent experience as well. If we have parents that are piecing together, different types of childcare that are free or low cost, and having to make a new childcare plan every week that's not very reliable, you know, they're not able to reliably show up every day as an employee. They are not able to be as productive as they normally would if they're worried every day about what am I going to do for childcare tomorrow? Is my child safe? I had to rely on my crazy uncle today, and I don't know if that's such a good idea. So that really creates a loss of productivity, a loss of focus, and a level of stress that I think really impacts our workforce. And so having that reliable, consistent care you can count on every day, that you know your child is getting that enriching, like loving experience, translates to the worker to be able to really focus on making an impact. And we know that it's women. It's mostly women that have been displaced from the workforce because of the childcare crisis. And we have a lot to bring, ladies. So if we can be there and be focused and be productive, I mean, I think it makes a big difference.
Really, really, really great points. Really great points. So we know the data shows us, right, that everything you've said is absolutely true. There is a turnover with workforce. People are having to make very hard decisions that they frankly might not want to have to make related to staying home because either they can't find care or they can't find sustainable, affordable quality care, and they have to make the choice to disengage from the workforce. So it's a loss to the workforce as a whole. And certainly if we were to then look at it again from the employer perspective, I have to imagine that it would be fair to say that an employer who decides to integrate some of these type of benefits, whatever's right for them, understanding of course everyone's different, might be able to, in theory, engage a broader pool of the local workforce that they're interested in engaging with, and of course engagement and retention of course being a huge issue nationally for all employers. So we recognize of course that employers aren't the only solution, nor would they be expected to fix this complex challenge. But based on everything you've said here today, I think it's really clear that employers can be a part of the solution here. So thank you so much.
If you think about the evolution of employee benefits, just to jump in on your point,
please.
which I think is really well spoken. So healthcare benefits, maternity and paternity leave, family leave, the benefits that you described, Jennifer, all of these things in my lifetime have evolved. And at some point, employers had to say, this is how we care for our workforce. So of course there's bottom line concerns about hiring, recruitment, and retention, but also I think realizing that caring for your workforce helps with productivity, creativity, loyalty, all of those sort of secondary benefits that come from having a really good human resources benefit package. And while this might seem impossible, workplace childcare or employer-supported childcare, health insurance once seemed impossible, or paternity leave once seemed impossible. So I believe we can take this leap forward together. And here in San Diego, we're fortunate to have lots of good resources to help.
Very, very true. Certainly the pandemic has changed everything.
Yes.
And the world of work has not been spared, but it does feel like we're in a moment where we can make some decisions collectively as a community to determine the future that we want to return to. So everything you said, I think, gives great food for thought to that. So thank you all so much for being here today to share that with us.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you to our amazing panelists. You have provided important and impactful food for thought for us today. I appreciate our Director of Community Impact, Katie Rast, for her excellent moderator skills. We also want to thank our donors and partners for joining us today. Your support sustains this important work to improve the lives of young children and their families in our region. We invite our nonprofit partners to apply for our Early Childhood Initiative Equitable Opportunities Grant. This $1 million grant will support local programs providing access to quality, affordable early education and care for children throughout our region. This year, the grant will include an additional area of focus, early childhood literacy, made possible through a partnership with the Dr. Seuss Foundation. In collaboration with our partners at the Dr. Seuss Foundation, we'd like to encourage you to learn more about this exciting opportunity. Applications are currently being accepted through May 6. To learn more about how you can apply, please visit the link in this video. Finally, thank you to the Water Conservation Garden for hosting our panelists. We also thank County Board of Supervisors Chair Nathan Fletcher for adding his perspective to today's event. I'd like to acknowledge the wonderful team that supports our Early Childhood Initiative. Director of Community Impact, Katie Rast, Manager of Community Impact, Lonnie Batista Cabanilla, Manager of Community Impact, Tori Nelson-Kalish, and Community Impact Program Specialist, Joy DeCina. You've done an amazing job coordinating this event and sharing the impact of this important program. Thanks are also extended to our communications team that supported today's event. And we'd like to thank our video production team at the Media Arts Center, San Diego, a talented local nonprofit. To all of our viewers, thank you for joining us. Thank you for deepening your understanding and for supporting this community need.